And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for the annual Lightspeed Brothers Best Movies of the Year. And now, here's your host, Nick.
Wait a minute, it's fucking TV shows. Popularizing the end of year top 10 list is probably the greatest thing that YouTube has done for humanity. And I always thought that by the end of the year, one year, I would see enough high caliber movies to make a top 10 list for myself, for this channel. But it's never been the case, and it's only proper that TV affords me that opportunity the year that I've truly converted from being a mainly movie guy to a mainly TV guy. I've been watching the classics, I've been watching the new stuff, and if you're not on the new stuff, I implore you to binge, catch up, make sure you're watching 3 returning shows next year live, because we're experiencing simply too prolific a time for the medium for you not to not be embracing the moment, to not be living in it, because we're seeing some of the greatest shows of all time air before our very eyes. We had some of those in 2022, so without a further ado, let's talk about the 10 best TV shows of 2022 ranked. After I finished Severance, I had no intention of putting it on this list. I thought it was a very, very good show. I just wasn't convinced it was a great one, but over the months, it, like its villainous company Lumen, just has a way of getting inside your head and refusing to leave once it burrows in. The biggest reason why Severance continues to live in your head rent-free is the effortless, creative, and believable sci-fi world it has made. It is an unreal achievement to have something so meticulously detailed on TV, let alone on an Apple TV streaming service. And the attention to details, my God, it is so easy to go onto YouTube, go down the rabbit hole, and find 50, 100 things you missed that are so impossible to recognize, to truly appreciate on a first watch. But it's not as if Severance backs up this flashy exterior with a hollow, cold sci-fi interior. No, it has a warm, beating heart to it. This strong ensemble makes for an extremely likable cast of characters that are so easy to root for, and it's why an episode like The We Are, one of the highest rated episodes on IMDb, works. Yes, it is a technical achievement that ratchets up tension so slowly over its nearly 50-minute runtime, but it's the characters, it's the ability of the show to make you root for and feel bad for these people that are so abused by Lumen, abused by their company, that makes the show thrive. And I hope they lean into that more and less into the formulaic and often plotting mystery elements that the show can sometimes use as a crutch. But there's no season 2 I am more excited for in 2023 than Severance is.
Fight the Empire!
It's crazy that Andor worked, but it's not crazy how it worked. It resolutely rejects everything that Star Wars has been since Disney bought it. No empty spectacle or cameos, no senseless mythology destruction, no dogmatic obedience to tradition or trying to appease original trilogy fans, no ulterior motives, just pure storytelling with sophisticated scripts by Tony Gilroy that makes for, overall, the most mature, well-rounded Star Wars product since the late seasons of the Clone Wars. It feels so unlike what Star Wars has been as of late, and yet it is easily the most immersive the Star Wars world has been since the original trilogy. There's no easy way to sum up all of what Andor does right, but the main thing you have to mention is the Empire, how Tony Gilroy makes it into a fully fledged character in its own right, and how he makes the world that the Empire rules over so cruel, so fearsome, so tedious and unhappy for the people who live in it, that it gives so much more weight to the resistance that goes up against the Empire, to the rebellion itself, because we know of the evil, to the painful consequences that await these people if they fail. The messaging may be on the nose, to be sure, but the narrative overall gives Star Wars a sense of dramatic weight it's not felt since at least Season 6 of the Clone Wars, and it allows the moments of spectacle, the gunfights, the daring escapes to feel all the more deserved and exciting. It's been a long time since Star Wars has so delicately balanced exploring all the fun and exciting ways it can use sci-fi weapons and tools to clash good guys against bad guys, while also dealing with the human challenges and the political implications of the sci-fi massive world that it creates. Smiling Friends is without doubt the TV show that you're going to see the least of on the Critics' Best of the Year list, but it's also one of HBO Max's most watched programs of the year. So it definitely resonated with audiences in a way it didn't with critics. And I think that largely comes down to the fact that this show is exclusively and unabashedly committed to just being funny. Smiling Friends' brand of comedy is so smart, specific, and time-relevant. For years, we've been hearing about meme culture, that it's destroyed our sense of humor, and that no one trying to do comedy in a formal way can make us laugh in the same way as the things we see online. Smiling Friends throws that conventional wisdom out the window, and it perfectly translates the randomness, the vulgar nature of the comedy we see on the internet into an 11-minute show. It's remarkable, and I think most crucially of all, it understands that an expertly crafted setup and punchline joke may not be as funny as something completely nonsensical and random that may make us laugh nonetheless. And it doesn't trap itself to being random, to just throwing random things on the screen all the time. No, the final episode, The Trip to Brazil, is an 11-minute modern-day comedy of manners where they just talk and have miscommunications for an entire episode, and it's brilliant. Pretty much like everything else that Smiling Friends does when it's just trying to make you laugh.
I trusted you.
Better Call Saul was so hard to rank this year because it varied so wildly in quality in Season 6. There were times where it felt necessary to call bullshit on anyone who was going to say it was the best series of the year. There were many other times where it felt masterful. Overall, it certainly wasn't Saul's best season, or even its second. For me, it may not even be its third best season. But what I can't deny, what I was talking about in my season review, is that it stuck the landing. Saul Season 6 exemplified just how much the creators understood the product on their hands. It was the rare final season, maybe the only one I've ever seen, where every single subplot came to its logical, cathartic conclusion, where not a single false note was hit, not anything felt untrue to the show, and every idea that needed to be touched upon or revisited was. In an era, in all of TV history really, where the final season feels like it's almost bound to have one idea, one thing that doesn't quite work, but you excuse it because of all the show has done for you in the past, Saul absolutely rejected that and instead rewarded you for your faith in the show and faith in the creator's vision. Do I think per episode this was a perfect season of television? Absolutely not. It is still possible for a show to make no wrong mistakes, but to just drag out the right choices for a long amount of time. Episode 11 is the cheapest, most unnecessary and filler-like episode that Gilligan and Company have ever created. Episodes 4 through 6 could have been condensed into 2 episodes. When it comes to the switch of the actors, the guy that Gene exploits, it was a complete failure. He lost all of the creepiness that he had in previous seasons. And when people came at the showrunners, when they started critiquing the season for getting dragged out a bit, everyone was up in arms. Peter Gold and company, they couldn't believe what they were seeing, that these people that all they do is sing the praises of Better Call Saul dare say a damning word about the season when it obviously just wasn't as tight as Season 5 or Season 3. But I can't even be mad at some of the season's shortcomings to me because I understand that not a single sect of the fan base was favored over the other. The people that loved the hijinks of the show, they were satisfied here. The hijinks was present even though the stakes were never higher. The people that loved the patience, even though that same patience drove others crazy, that was present as well. Those people were satisfied. Every single element that was core to Saul's being in the past 5 seasons was present in Season 6. Not a single moment of this season felt untrue to the show's being. And overall, not only did all the chess pieces fall in the right position, not only did everything feel so unnaturally right for a final season by the time we got to its final shot, but I just have to be appreciative of Saul because it is the last drama that truly feels classical in a way. It is the last one that doesn't feel any need at all to be cutesy, that just is fully invested in the characters and the struggles they face and doesn't have to add any extra flourishes on top of that. It is the last of the traditional prestige TV dramas that we have on television, and it was just awesome to see it wrap up in such satisfying fashion.
You aren't a person. You're a ghost.
The Dropout made me really sit back and contemplate just what art does. Because most of the time we see heroes. We see people we want to be like. They have moral shortcomings, but they fix themselves. They change. But in the rare case, you have protagonists that don't do that. That are not just incapable of changing, but are just pure villainy. It feels like an eternity passes from the time The Dropout starts to when it ends. When you first meet Elizabeth Holmes and Sonny Balwani, they're like any other characters. There are parts in them that you like, you don't like, that you see in yourself, that you would like to see in yourself. But overall, they are ambitious, no-nonsense people that want to be forces of moral good in the world. And you think they ultimately have good intentions, even if the seeds of a rise and fall are planted early on, that their unethicality is certainly foreshadowed. But you would never foresee them becoming as nefarious as they are by episode 5 of the show, and that they are 2 of some of the most evil people that I've ever seen on a TV show before. And the performances behind those roles are as pivotal as any other performance you're going to see this year. If they don't work, this show doesn't work, plain and simple. It is now impossible for me to unlink the actors from the characters they play. They just made that much of an impression on me, with Amanda Seyfried in particular getting her flowers this year, and they're well-deserved. She's exceptional. Hulu simply has figured out the Scammer miniseries. Dopesick was really, really good. The Dropout was great. And I'm so pleased it was on this platform, because if it was on something like Netflix, it would have been far too trashy. They would have never found the right talent for the ensemble to run as deep as it does. It would have never found the right balance of pulp and seriousness. And overall, the fact that The Dropout was on Hulu allowed it to achieve a degree of artistic integrity that it likely wouldn't have found on other platforms.
It was a huge mistake. You fucked this all up.
And now a scenery change for the top 5. I'm going to say as little about the rehearsal as humanly possible, because the greatest service I can do to you is to make sure that you go in as fresh as I did. I originally had it at the number 4 slot. I bumped it down because the other show is fresher in my head, and because I do think it takes 2.5 episodes for the show to set up a formula that's not particularly enticing. It has to do that because the way it subverts that formula midway through episode 3 is what really makes the show so special, and what makes it one of the most meta, dizzying affairs I've seen in any form of medium. You will be amazed that this all came out of one person's head. It is without doubt the smartest show of the year. Doesn't make it the best, but it is a brilliant creation from HBO. They struck gold with this, and you should definitely watch it. The White Lotus is so HBO, it's amazing. It's maybe the most HBO show that HBO has ever made. It is a show that spits in the face of cable TV's rules, not just by prominently showcasing sex, but by making it the entire foundation of a season of television. But more than that, HBO has always prided itself on going places where regular TV won't. Not using spectacle where it doesn't belong, not using cheap Barney bag tricks to keep viewers invested week to week. And what is more representative than that than HBO's White Lotus being a show in which you have 8 or so people being isolated, where the only things they have to talk about are the issues du jour of the day, the things that are dominating our discourse right now. If that is not why HBO was created, to explore stuff like that, to make these people so tortured that they have no choice but to show the darkest parts of themselves, I don't know why HBO was made in the first place. I'm not surprised that White Lotus Season 2 is more successful than Season 1 in connecting with viewers. Season 1, all the characters were so despicable that you were forced to become detached from them. Here, that's not the case, and it's a lot easier to care and be motivated to watch more of the season because you like some of these people to some extent. And also what's important is that there's no clear proxy for Mike White's views. Where in the first season you had the son who was clearly directing the moral compass of the show, there are no easy answers to the White Lotus Season 2. There's no one character that's absolutely definitively spouting truth, and it makes what Mike White is saying a lot more interesting and also a lot harder to fully decipher. I'm just really glad that Mike White's behind the show, because if he wasn't, this could easily be one of the most pretentious, didactic, and torturous things that HBO has ever made, that we've ever seen grace our TV screens. But because he knows what to say and how to say things, The White Lotus is a really fascinating look at some of the darkest parts of humans, while also not feeling like a torturous experience, while not being oppressively punishing, and also being really damn fun at times as well.
If I don't do this, I don't live!
Like with the rehearsal, I'm not going to say a lot about Barry. I've dedicated like 30 minutes talking about the season this year. And all I feel as though I need to reiterate is that when the show is at its best, it laughs in the face of some of these top 5 shows. That's just how good it is. It's just frustrating in how it can't maintain some of the quality the way these other shows can. It has a lot of variation to it, like Better Call Saul, but not to that extent. I'll use the rest of this time to talk about Sarah Goldberg, who, the AV Club had a list of the best performances of 2022 and had her at number 2. I did not see Zendaya in Euphoria, but goddamn is that deserved. Sarah Goldberg is doing something really special with her character in Barry. She could have easily been the Skylar White of the show, where it's always a dull moment seeing her on screen, but she has come into her own. She is easily the best performer of the year, in my opinion. Shame she didn't get the Emmy, but goddamn is she doing excellent work.
King Viserys of House Targaryen!
House of the Dragon doesn't resort to rehashing what Game of Thrones did by making a chaotic clash for the throne. It instead goes in the opposite direction, using a simple yet effective technique, and where you don't have 5 people vying for it at once, you have 2 firmly shaped camps, House Targaryen and House Hightower, clashing at each other in easily the most interesting, most complex rivalry we've had since Game of Thrones was on air. I think House of the Dragon Season 1 will age very well. As more seasons roll out and we get more head-on collisions between these 2 camps, I think people will come to appreciate how reactive this season was to the end complaints of Game of Thrones, where this was not something ruled by dragons flying around, that was the highlight. This was a season of political maneuvering where people were mainly just talking in rooms, trying to gain leverage over others. That's why all of us came to love Game of Thrones in the first place, and House of the Dragon rekindled that like no other show could. I mean, this season was such a triumph. They had no right to make Rhaenyra as compelling as she was. They expertly detail all the indecencies, the unique challenges and cruelties she faces on her way to becoming the Black Queen, and she faces a lot of them. And they made such an interesting time period in Game of Thrones history where you had this fragile piece that Viserys has slowly deteriorating over time. And there is so much poetic tragedy here where there's just slight miscommunications that bring this family, that Viserys is trying so desperately to hold together to the brink of civil war, and in the process brings the whole realm to civil war. This was an excellent season of television, one that perfectly recaptured my love and many others' love for Game of Thrones, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Ibra, make sandwiches! Don't stop making fucking sandwiches!
And then there's The Bear, which is just a cut above the rest, pun intended. When I saw it, when I finished it, I knew it was the best show of the year. The critics that have it at #1, they're right. The AV Club, The Guardian, Rotten Tomatoes all had it at #1. It damn well should be. And I'm glad we're finally talking about why The Bear is the best show of the year as opposed to why it's just a great show. Because that's what got people in the door, right? It's tense. It's unnerving. Uncut gems in the kitchen. Episode 7 long take is masterful. Absolutely. Damn right. But it's not why the show is the best of the year. It's the best of the year it's because it's the most densely packed show by a mile. In visual details, in character moments, in pure ideas. And by the way, most of the episodes run about a half an hour. So you're only doing this off of 4 hours of runtime, and you outclass shows that sometimes go for 13 plus hours. That's nuts. The Bear is the show of the year. It came up from nowhere. No one expected it. No one saw it coming. It rose up from the depths of the earth and just kicked everyone's ass. No one saw it coming. And that's what made it all the more fun. That's what made it such a treat to watch in 2022. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the first Lightspeed Brothers top 10 of a given year. It was TV. It was awesome. Go watch some of it for yourself.